Well, Cavs fans, the trade deadline is this week, but the Cavaliers have already kicked off the wheeling and dealing as they pull off a move on Saturday night that rids them of DeAndre Hunter, brings in a couple role players. Spencer and I here to break it down with you as part of our Cavs roundtable coverage.
It is Sunday. It is Sunday, Spence.
You know what's funny about that? My son this morning, we were like laying in bed and he comes in and like grabs the TV remote and he's like, I guess we can watch the Browns today. And I was like, normally we will be watching the Browns today, but not right now. They're not they didn't quite make it this far. So that was funny. But anyway, yes, as part of our Cavs roundtable coverage. And again, I encourage you to head over to CavsRoundtable.com. Got some written stuff over there. I actually put up a piece this morning with some of my thoughts on the move and why I think it's actually a win for the Cavs. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already. We got you covered with stuff like this, pods, and our post-game pods, plus all our post-game press conferences, which right now are kind of on standby because the Cavs are on a West Coast trip and Spence and I are obviously not there. So anyway, guys, this was a big one, Spence, on Saturday night. I don't want to say came out of nowhere because we had heard some rumblings that things were kind of in the works and some things were happening. But, you know, it does happen sort of ahead of the trade deadline on Thursday. And so it probably did catch some people a little bit off guard being a late Saturday night trade. But DeAndre Hunter goes to the Kings. Cavs get back Dennis Schroder, Keon Ellis, and it's a 3-team deal, so there's some other sort of parameters involved. But that's the gist of what Cavs fans obviously want to know about the deal. And listen, there's a lot of sort of places to go with this. And we are going to talk about like what this means for the lineup and things like that. But I kind of want to start with just the DeAndre part of this because Spence, like on the surface, I do feel bad for DeAndre Hunter because when they traded for him last year, I felt, man, like this is the missing piece. He got off to such a good start in the playoffs last year, and then it just has gone to the wayside this year, and he hasn't been the same player. And I think the Cavs kind of looked at it and said, with the potential flexibility, the tax flexibility that we can create with this, to try to get ourselves closer to being under that second apron, and to bring in a couple pieces that we think can also help us now. It probably made sense to pull off a move like this and you know start sort of positioning yourself in a different way while still trying to compete right now.
There's definitely a few different factors that go into this. I think for one, the luxury tax and salary cap stuff on the books, that is probably one of their priorities. Like, can you justify paying DeAndre Hunter $24 million through 2027 with the way that he was playing this season? Now, it kind of probably feels like a knee-jerk reaction because it's only been half of the season. I think that they understand it as an organization that they got undervalued back for him, especially for, you know, the way that he played post All-Star break and going into the playoffs, and then he obviously had that thumb injury that kind of screwed stuff up. He was the talk of the town over the offseason. Him and Kenny Atkinson getting a relationship, talking about different roles, wanting to be a starter, being a starter with that core four, and whatever members of the core four were playing didn't quite work out, so he goes to the bench, finds a little bit of a rhythm, but then, again, just kind of slides back into that inconsistency, some bad decisions. It's really perplexing. And I think the organization feels the same way about how he just kind of forgot how to play in instances. And sometimes he would just make some baffling choices. Like in that Phoenix game the other night, for example, and I know this is probably not great contextually, but he had some passes that he made that just were like, what are you doing? Like cross court, trying to stare down a target, or starting a fast break and trying to get it to someone ahead on the transition, and you know it gets stolen. You know, like it's little stuff like that really just makes you like, where's this guy coming from? This isn't the DeAndre Hunter that was dealt for. This isn't the guy who was burning the nets down from deep and had the size and the contested jumper. Like, he was just not himself for some reason. And I think it was affecting the defensive end of the floor. I also think that with Dre, some of the concerns come probably from the injury history, maybe not being able to move as well maybe not being as good of a lateral defender as Cleveland might have hoped. So what did they do? And this is pretty bold for me because I didn't think this was the best deal that they could get, and I don't think the Cleveland thought it was either. But they course corrected in the matter of a half a season, and they were like, look, if it doesn't work out, then we're going to have to move on. Time is of the essence. And you look at also the injuries to a Darius Garland and the shortcomings of what's happened with Lonzo Ball. They had to act. They had to act because they weren't getting the job done when they weren't playing, or in Lonzo's case, when he has been playing. So they went out and they got a guy like Dennis Schroder, brings 8 years of playoff experience to the table. This is going to be his 11th team, so he's definitely felt around the league. Plays with an edge on the court, to put it lightly. And I think he's gotten better at taking care of the basketball as he's gotten older. That's definitely something that hurt him early in his career, but he's gotten better at as he's gotten older. Can obviously play make for you. Gets downhill, gets to the free throw line. We'll also kind of think about his contract. It's $15 million, a little bit easier to move if you don't like the fit, if you don't like what comes on the court. But I think they'll end up rolling with Schroder just because of the insurance for Garland. Unlike some people on
and Spin with how the Lonzo Ball experience is gone, he kind of can be that next man up off the bench as a ball handler once DG's obviously back, which is the role you kind of envisioned for Lonzo. Was, hey, this guy's going to be sort of the first off the bench, extra ball handler, second unit ball handler if we need to. And there was moments obviously for Lonzo where it looked like that was at least like a good part of his game, but the shooting hasn't been there. He's obviously been that experience hasn't gone well either. So I think there is value in adding somebody like Schroder to this rotation. Yes, I know the thing everyone's looking at right now, and they're like, this team has a surplus of guards. Like, what the hell are they doing?
They do.
That we'll get to that part later because I don't necessarily think they're done making moves. Lonzo's part of that equation. We'll get to that, but yeah, like I like the addition there. And here's the other thing, which we've talked ad nauseum in our group text about this already. For all the people that jump in our comment section here at Cavs Roundtable and criticize the Cavs for not being tough and not having that mental edge and all those things, guys, Dennis Schroder is an irritant. Like he's the kind of guy that can really provide that fire, that spark for you in the playoffs. I think that, it was funny. Every time people talk about that, they talk about the year that Kendrick Perkins was with the Cavs, and they're like, that guy, that's the kind of guy we need. Kendrick Perkins gave a stamp of approval of this trade, and he kind of alluded to that with the two guys that they get in Ellis and Schroder. And I think that's important. Like, with how much people bring that up, getting some of these pieces, getting multiple pieces that can kind of provide that edge for you, provide that toughness for you, and sort of set that tone, I think is valuable to, and that's a compliment, by the way, to other guys like Jaylen Tyson and Craig Porter Jr. and Tyrese, like some of the young guys who have also kind of provided that. Naquan Tomlin. Now you have more guys in there that kind of help set that tone and that mentality for this team. So yeah, like I think from that standpoint too, there's a lot of value that comes with a guy like Schroder because he is going to be in your face. He always is. And in some respects, like that can be, sometimes that can have a negative impact, but I think it's worth taking the chance on because if he helps in that regard, especially postseason time, I think people will come around to really liking him.
And the Cavs have really put a focus on getting to the paint as of late.
Yeah.
Dennis is somebody that does that. He gets downhill, he gets to the free throw line. Kings free throw rate as a team when he's on the floor very high. So that whether that's him getting to the free throw line or that's getting the guys the ball in the paint to get to the charity stripe, that's another big factor. But I also want to get into Keon Ellis because I think that's the bigger piece in this deal.
I think he's the big prize. He's the bigger prize of the two from a contract standpoint, from like an upside standpoint. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you look at what Keon brings to the table. It's funny that this trade almost made the Cavs go back to their structure from 2 years ago. So now you have your backup ball handler, and in this case, when Darius is on the sideline, probably the guy who's going to be playing a lot of the point guard.
Yeah.
And then you have your defensive stopper with Isaac Okoro, but you're missing your 6'8" wing guy, right? So it's almost like we've gone back in time now. So but let's get Keon's stuff out of the way here. So he is like Isaac Okoro in a lot of ways. He is really good on the ball. Defensively, he is going to pester you. I don't know what his screen defeating is like. Like Isaac's able to blow up through some of those picks. I don't know if Keon's got that same build. He's a little bit skinnier. But instinctually, we know that this guy plays the passing lays like a fiend. There's so many clips out there, if you just look up Keon Ellis on Twitter right now, because he's trending, where you see him just poking the ball away from ball handlers and pressuring them up
His
the floor.
His turnover rates are incredible. Yeah.
Not giving them an ounce of space. I did an article last night for Clutch Points, and I was looking up his cleaning the glass stats, and it was astounding. The Kings, their opponent's turnover rate when he's on the floor was 17.1%. That's in the 92nd percentile in the league. And when he's off the floor, teams are turning it over 4.3% fewer. So that means he had that big of an impact on them defensively for a team that's not great defensively.
Yeah.
That particular number when he's off the floor was in the 99th percentile in the NBA. So if there's one skill you can count on with Keon Ellis, it is definitely that defensive piece that the Cavs, frankly, have been missing this season because DeAndre Hunter's fallen short on that end. I think you look at some of the guys that, at least earlier in the season, were really putting a lot of strain on Evan Mobley and a lot of strain on Jarrett Allen because teams were able to get by so easily and get to the free throw line and make it hell for them in the paint. And then when that happens, they collapse in, and then teams start burning you from three, right? I think you address both with Keon here when you can rely on someone to blow some stuff up and make sure that guys aren't getting by as easily. You eliminate more of those driving kicks. And when the ball does get kicked out, I think that Keon's good at contesting. So that's pretty much how I see Keon. And then offensively, again, like I hate to draw comps, but like player prototype wise, very similar to Isaac Okoro. Low usage, slasher, somebody who can knock the three down, I think a little bit better than Isaac. I agree. He's having a down year this season, and he's shooting 37% from deep. So that's a good sign, because last year he shot at 43% when he had more consistent minutes. So with a role that is standard and defined for Keon, I think that he'll thrive here as far as a catch shooter goes. I'm not sure necessarily what his playmaking chops are like. If he's somebody like Okoro who has a first step that's solid and can make that secondary pass or whatnot like that. I think I did read somewhere that he swings the ball quite a bit, but I'm interested to see just that part of it on the offensive end. He's not going to have the ball in his hands a ton.
Yeah.
And this is where I take issue with him being considered a guard. He's not a guard. He's got a guard's size, but he's more like a wing. And then again, as I was mentioning earlier, it's like we've gone back in time, because how many times have we had this conversation about Isaac Okoro? How many times are we going to have this conversation about Jaylen Tyson? Because the outlook is going to be like, okay, well, they don't have a guy that's 6'7", 6'8", other than Dean Wade now, which is true, which is why I also think they're not done. But also, Kenny Atkinson likes his guard-heavy lineups. He likes his smaller lineups that can be athletic, be fast, and also give teams matchup problems. So that's how I would look at this. The point of attack defense with Keon and the ability to shoot the three, I think, is part of the skill set. And also with his contract, it's expiring right now. Yes, he does become extension eligible on February 9th. So that's a date to keep an eye on,
and the Cavs
if they like him that much.
Yeah, and the Cavs have his bird rights, so they can extend him. Yeah, listen, I like the Isaac Okoro comparison. You've texted us that a few times now, and I think that's very fair. I do think there's a little more upside, though, from the shooting standpoint. Like Isaac in his career is, I think, a 35% three-point shooter, and he's been in the league a couple years longer than Keon has, but Keon in his career is a 41% three-point shooter, and I'm assuming the Cavs are hoping, he's down slightly this year, but 38 still pretty respectable overall. And that's actually better than I think maybe one season that Isaac Okoro's had is when he shot 39% for the season a couple years ago. Like 38 is still better than most of Isaac Okoro's seasons that he's had from shooting from three. And they're hoping he can kind of get back to shooting like 43% like he did last year from three. And if he can do that, like you said, in more of a defined role, I think you make out great with this trade, right? Because you get that defensive stalwart. You get the guy that can, spread the floor a little bit and be a shooter that you can kick out to and they can just knock down threes. To me, it's kind of like you upgraded that position while also getting a new guy in here who's a ball handler that hopefully helps you upgrade what you have in Lonzo Ball right now. Once we get a move with him, I would anticipate. So, yeah, I'm fascinated by Keon Ellis, and I look forward, like you, to seeing more and how Kenny kind of deploys him.
He's a strong safety, man. He's a strong safety. Yeah. He's like a corner, dude. He's a very good at reading offensive players before they make their next move. Just based on what I watched yesterday. I was up to like just like trying to get his game down a little bit, but
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, like him and Schroder both have kind of like that edge to them where they're going to play with some physicality and some toughness, and that's I think a good thing for the Cavs. And we were texting about this earlier as well, Spence, but you mentioned, you're going back in time because you don't have like that wing that, by the traditional wing in terms of like size and stature right now, other than Dean Wade. But what's really made all this possible, as we sort of talked about, is Jaylen Tyson. Like Jaylen Tyson's ability to be sort of this scrappy player on defense and cause problems for guys and not back down from any challenge against any player, no matter how big they are, to sort of fill that void that they've been looking for, really, really becoming what they wanted DeAndre Hunter to be on both ends of the floor. Guy that can shoot it, guy that can attack the rim, guy that's making, is an offensive contributor, but also just completely all in on playing tough, hard-nosed defense. Like he's helping you on both ends. And so his effort, his performance this year has almost made DeAndre Hunter expendable in this situation. And that's on top of, and so because of that, like Tyson almost helped the Cavs in multiple ways because he's been so important on the floor. He's done the things that you were looking for from DeAndre Hunter. And because of that, like he's also now helping the Cavs kind of get out from the second apron a little bit sooner than this summer, or at least get closer to getting out from the second apron because you were able to move off of the DeAndre Hunter deal and know that you have a guy who can kind of fill that void on a cheaper rate in Jaylen Tyson. So the Jaylen Tyson part of this, I think, is super valuable to note because this was all kind of made possible by him. And now it's just about how these new pieces kind of fit in and what other moves potentially are looming here as well for the Cavs.
Yeah, his emergence definitely had a lot to do with it. I think, when we talked after that Lakers game, I think that was just like a point for me to be like, all right, yeah, like at some point, this is going to be the guy that they look for to play at the three. And he's making the plays, whether it's shooting the basketball, whether it's involving his teammates as a secondary playmaker, defensively picking up guys full court, being put on the opponent's best players in certain instances. That just kind of had the writing on the wall for me, I just think, it's unfortunate sometimes when you have some redundancy in that role. And we know that Kenny is not shy of playing guys who are, a little bit shorter up a position. It's not something that, that's completely out of the blue. A lot of teams do it. And I do want to get back to what you were talking about, though, real quick, just with the wing debate. Like, again, we're going to have these conversations just like we did with Isaac, just like we did anybody with Max, can Jaylen Tyson be a small forward? Yes, he can be a small forward. He's 6'6". He's 6'6", 6'7" with shoes, even though we play basketball on the court without shoes. So, that's big time, but anyways, I think he's shown that you can play the three. Jaylen can play the three. He's guarded some really tough assignments already. And when you're shooting like that and when you're defending like that, there's any rebounds the heck out of the ball. Like, come on, guys. Like, stop focusing on the height. Like he's a big guy. He's got length. Like,
that's the thing that sometimes, I think what it is sometimes, Spence, is like, and I do this too. You get sort of used to one of the first things you look up when you trade for somebody or whatever is like, okay, what's their like stature, right? Because you want to know like what role they fit. You kind of know their position coming in, but it's like, all right, how will they utilize in other lineups or on other teams? And so you get sort of caught up in him not being the traditional wing size. And same thing with Keon Ellis, like not being the traditional wing size. But again, in today's NBA, they say it's positionless basketball. It's a cliche, yes, but at the same time, there are guys that can fit different roles, and I think that moving past that is important when it comes to Jaylen, when it comes to Keon. So yeah, like is it ideal? Like, will that sometimes be a mismatch when somebody like Jason Tatum out there? Maybe, but like he's earned the right to at least play that role and see what he can do with it. And I don't think Kenny's as worried about that as other people are when it comes to like the standpoint of like their stature. So I do think that's just like a lazy thing that we all kind of do at times. I'm certainly guilty of it, but we don't have to. And I agree with you on that front. I think the next and maybe final part of this conversation, Spence, just revolves around like what else is to come. And there's a question we got from our guy, JB Smooth in the comments here. I wonder what this means for Strus's future. I think that's a fair question and maybe a good point to sort of continue this conversation in terms of like what else could be coming. I think we both agree on this. There's probably a Lonzo Ball deal coming at some point where they're just trying to sort of salary dump that $10 million that he's owed. And if they do that, by the way, they're then only like $3 million over the second apron. So they're pretty close to then getting under that. And so that maybe creates the space for Naquan Tomlin, but that might not mean they're totally done either. And I think Strus is a good talking point here because maybe there is a move in the future that involves Max Strus to, like you said, get you more of that traditional wing if that's something that they think they need to still do.
And I think they can still get that traditional wing. I believe it was Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com, who said that the Cavs were interested in Julian Champagny over in Washington, and Washington was one of the teams that was interested in absorbing Lonzo Ball's contract. But also it could be a salary dump, just for the apron or for the apron purposes and trying to get under that. And then, if they get under the apron like before the deadline, then like my antennas are up. I'm not surprised by anything I see at the deadline anymore. You know what happened last year, so like it's and me, I don't like. I'm not a big transactions guy. Like when this stuff happens, I like to talk about it. But I would just say with Strus, I'm not sure. And they've been talking about his rehab for a little while now, and it's not really too much of an update. Thought by the end of January he would be up and rolling. But at this point, I think for Darius, I think for Max, and I think for Evan. Hold them out until the All-Star break's over. Agreed. and then kick this thing up. Like there's no point of bringing someone back to play 2 games just to be out of rhythm again after the break, right? Like I feel like it'd be smarter for them to just kind of just roll with what they have and go from there. I don't want to say that someone's on their way out or someone is safe or anything like that. I just know that, come off-season time, I think those are more of the conversations they have than they do right now. So that's what I would say for Strus. That's what I would say for a lot of this team other than Lonzo. I think Lonzo's gone. Another situation that just sucks because, just hasn't been himself, and he's just taken some really tough shots. He's done some good things defensively in pinches and can rebound the ball, and he's had stretches where he's looked like the old Lonzo, but it just doesn't seem like it's coming around. So for him, I think how big the guard room is right now doesn't bode well for Lonzo. I don't even think it bodes well. You mentioned him earlier. I don't even think it bodes well for Craig, to be honest. Because you have a lot of guys that you play at the 1 and the 2. And we're not even mentioning, Sam Merrill fits in this. Is he going to play the 2? Is he going to play the 3? Right. And you have Jaylen Tyson already, and you have Tyrese Proctor. So someone's going to be an odd man, probably odd men out. So that's what we have to keep an eye on. You brought up Naquan Tomlin. I thought that was a good point. Right now, as of the current roster, they cannot convert his 2-way contract
have 15
until they create a roster spot. So keep an eye on that. Also, other ramifications from this trade. Luke Travers was waived because the Cavs went out and traded for Emmanuel Miller That was a part of the Bulls being the third team, so they absorbed Dario Saric's contract, and they got a couple second-round picks, but they also had to send something else out instead of just taking Dario Saric, so they sent the two-way contract of Emmanuel Miller to the Cavs. So the Cavs got Emmanuel Miller, and they waived Luke Travers in a subsequent move. So that is another piece of this deal that hasn't been talked about. But with Naquan in particular, I'm interested to see how this roster gets maneuvered. Does anyone get waived? Like, the first thought that comes to my mind if they don't create an open roster spot is Larry Nance Jr., Thomas Bryant, someone that could get the heave-ho to make room for Naquan, because Naquan's played 24 minutes a night the last 6 games, so you're not just going to get rid of that. So that's the other parts of the deal that people aren't really talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we have it pretty well covered. The thing that the other thing too, like we were talking about wing size, and like, oh my gosh, they got 2 small guards. Like, okay, a lot of guards are small. Like let's just get that out of the way. And 2, Keon Ellis really isn't a guard. He's more of like a swingman. Like, and if he is a guard, he's not small. He's 6'4", 175, 6'5", 175, depending on what your measurement is. So that's just another pet peeve of mine. And the third pet peeve we'll close on after you close this out, because that's the other part of this that I want to talk about, and I hope my friends watch this.
We'll get to that here in a second. I think you covered everything well, Spence. And I would anticipate a Lonzo Ball deal follows here. That one feels almost imminent. And then anything else after that, Struz got brought up in the chat, but you bring up some other names, a Thomas Bryant, a Larry Nance, which is unfortunate because I actually thought the Nance signing at the time was going to be a good one, with him being sort of that stretch, player that can play inside and out. But listen, I think the best way to sum this up is like, when you're in the front office of a team, you take swings. Some of them are going to hit, some of them aren't. I mean, Kobe Altman deserves a lot of credit for the Jaylen Tyson pick, for investing in Sam Merrill and finding a guy out of the G League that's turned into a contributor for them. So many, there's the Naquan Tomlin, finding him like a diamond in the rough. There's also going to be things that you don't hit on. DeAndre Hunter clearly didn't work out. It's unfortunate. The Lonzo Ball thing we always knew was a little bit of an experiment, right? Because he hadn't played in so long. He'd been dealing with the chronic injuries, and it was kind of like if he can be himself, I like this. If he can't, though, like, it might not work out, and that's kind of where we're at. So these things happen. Like, this is life in the NBA. This is life of running an NBA franchise. And I think, all things considered, like this move that they made on Saturday night was like a best case scenario to get out from the DeAndre Hunter situation, restock your roster a little bit, at least in the margins. And I think they improved their roster in some ways in that regard. And there's still some work to do, but I think they'll figure that out in the days ahead. And obviously we will have you covered here at Cavs Roundtable as any of this other stuff unfolds, both on the website and on the YouTube channel. Spence, I know you have a final thought. And this is a good, I set it up for you perfectly, because if there's more trades coming, this is your warning to people about reaching out to you.
It is. And before I get into this rant, also remember, everybody, with the second apron, you can only do one player for 2 players if you're the Cavs. You cannot take multiple or you cannot send out multiple players. You cannot aggregate salaries unless you're out of the second apron when you do so, or you're under the second apron when you do so. So when you're doing your little fantasy trades and stuff like that, make sure that you're not saying something that's illegal by CBA rules. That's the only thing that I do ask when you do these trade machine
I don't think the trade machine is caught up to the second apron yet. I think the trade machine is just like, nope, just do it. But the trade machine needs to learn that the second apron exists.
There's a good one over at Spot Rack. So go over to Spot Rack. They have a great trade machine that takes the aprons into effect, whether things work, whether things do not work. But I will say, again, they're getting closer to getting under that second apron, especially if they move on from Lonzo Ball and $10 million. Then they'll only be $3 to $4 million over that second apron line, and then that's where things can start to get interesting. But just, that's one little note. My rant. Okay. I love my friends. They are family to me. I have godchildren that these people have for me. Like I I love them to death. I love my friends. I love my group chats. It's what makes the world go round. It's what makes me happy, right? Especially when we're in the dead of the season and I need some things to talk to, some people to talk to and whatnot. But when something like this happens, and when something happens in the off seasons, and when something happens with the Cavs, that's big news. And the first thing, I get like 20 texts. Hey, Spin, saw the trade. What do you think? What is it that I do for a living? My lovely people, my favorite people. What is it that I do for a living that you think could benefit you if you just consumed? I don't have a paywall. I have everything open for free. I have accounts on social media. I have my work everywhere. Can you just go there? Can you follow me? Can you follow your friend? We're like, oh man, like my friends sent, you know what my friends do? My friends send NBA Central stuff and Central stuff in my group chats. You want to know how that makes me feel, Spence? Where it was like one time, way back when, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. No, it was during the pandemic. It was a report.
That was about 5 years ago. It was like it's not almost 6 now. Yeah, 6
it was
now.
A report about Cavs training camp, and one of my friends sent an NBA Central and Hoop Central link to a report that I made. And the other account, the peddling engagement farming account with no link to my work. I looked at my friends, saw them the next day, and I was like, what are you guys doing? Are you trying to ruin me? Do you not want me to have food on my table?
You are one friend sending you Hoodie Garland's something from Hoodie Garland away,
and it's happened. And
from losing it, you're gonna lose it, Spence.
I am gonna lose. I'm gonna lose it all. I'm gonna lose it all, man. It's funny, and I don't care about the accreditation or whatever, like in an instant like this. But like if I have a piece of news, like I would like that because you work hard for that stuff. But in this case, when you're reacting to a trade, hey Spin, what are your thoughts on the trade? I don't know. Maybe read what I wrote, what I did for you, what I did for the audience, what I did for everybody else on the social media platforms.
Well, I will tell you.
What do you think I am?
We texted about it in our group chat, but I also planned on I knew you were going to put stuff up, and I was like, I'll read Spence's in-depth thoughts on this when he gets his stuff up. And I went right over, by the way, to Cavs Roundtable. You put a video up. You talked about it. You did a little poll to ask people how they graded the trade. And I voted in the poll. I listened to what you had to say. So
my friends think I could give them a personal cameo or something here. You should, what do you think about the trade? The same thing that I said about the trade on 2 different platforms.
Honestly, though, business opportunity for yourself. Start charging for your
start charging my friends.
A penny for your thoughts. A penny for your thoughts. Hey, you want to know what I feel about the trade?
Should I start charging my friend's 4-year-old if they want to know what my thoughts are on the Cavs trades?
Venmo me $250, and I will tell you my thoughts on the trade.
I'm saying, man, do you have that problem with the Browns or the Buckeyes or anything like that?
Sometimes, yeah.
It's astounding to me.
Yeah, I'll have people text me sometimes and be like, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And usually I just text them back. It's fine. I don't know. Spence, you're more reputable than me. You have your content's more. I
don't want to take liberties or say I'm a bad guy or doesn't love his friends, but it's just funny to me. Immediately the text messages. I literally got 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna count them. 3, 4, 5, 6. 20 was a little bit outrageous, but it was 7 or 8. But at the same time, I do this for a living. Guys.
So here's the thing: if you started charging $250 for 8 texts about your thoughts, that's $20, dude. That's $20. That's like 3 beers at a local watering hole. I'm just saying, business opportunity.
For sure. But yeah, that's my message to my friends. I love you guys. You are dear to my hearts. But for the love of God, please support your boy. That's all I ask.
Support Spence. Support the site, CavsRoundtable.com. Spence also writes over at Clutch Points. So I always like to make sure that's clear as well. He dabbles with both of us, so check his stuff out with us and check his stuff out over there because
RG.org and R.org as well for my NBA content. Got some major features coming up here in the next couple weeks.
Love that. So yeah, make sure you check out all of Spence's work. Make sure you stay locked in at CavsRoundtable.com because as we said on this show, Cavs probably aren't done. There's probably more coming. So you're going to want to follow along with all the news there. You're going to want to follow along right here at the Cavs Roundtable YouTube channel because we will talk to you about each and every move that happens. We'll have episodes for you coming on down the pike here. So stay locked in. And in the meantime, enjoy the West Coast trip. Our post-game shows are kind of on hold during this time because no one's staying up till 1 a.m.
No one's going to be watching at 1:30 a.m. after Cavs Blazers on a Sunday night.
We'll probably plan on doing like a couple episodes this week, like during the day after games. So we'll figure that out and we'll let you know. But in the meantime, we appreciate you coming to hang out and make sure you keep on following along with all things Cleveland Cavaliers with CavsRoundtable.com.